There has been a widely spread groundless message among tacticians in the tavern. It says that only the wisest Maiars can help the tacticians glimpse the fate of Middle-earth.
Radagast, I see you've arrived precisely when you meant to.
I'm as surprised as you are.
You haven't forgotten, have you?
Is it today?
It is. Perhaps Saruman is right in saying you've indulged a bit too much in the Hobbit's pipeweed.
Psh, Saruman doesn't know what's good for him.
Indeed, his taste is lacking. Well, you must remember today we come as the lead wizards of Lord of the Rings Rise to War to introduce Season 3 content.
That's right. Then let us proceed.
Without further ado, let's begin.
Well, you see, the theme of Season 3, Rebuilding Glory, is closely based on the game's new background story. After a long-running war, Middle-earth was left devastated.
In other words, due to the chaos of this conflict, each faction's spawn points will be somewhat reduced.
Yes, but that's not all. Fuel resources will become more scarce. Farming will become much more difficult. The best way to develop for players will be to expand much more than before.
The factions of Middle-earth, if they mean to survive, must rebuild. Structure development is a new system that we've added in Season 3, which will give players the option to build and expand upon significant structures they've already occupied. It will offer various buffs and resource accumulations that may help you along your journey in this season.
In Season 3, the structure development rankings will show how well each faction is capturing and developing their structure. Players can complete tasks to earn contribution points. The Fellowship and Warren store will be updated with new items. In light of these changes, how you go about developing your structures will be key to rebuilding your faction's glory. Well, you see, after a faction captures a structure, it can upgrade the structure's development level by dispatching commanders to garrison in it. By completing various tasks issued by the structure, it can unlock very special rewards, even buffs for your faction and special abilities.
At the same time, the structures once occupied will provide a movement range not dissimilar to the forts that you have in our game. Henceforth, the strategic value of such a structure will lie not only in expanding one's territory, but also in introducing new functions to your faction and to your fellowships and warbands.
Speaking of which, defensive camp rules have been added to the game. Those will give players the opportunity to capture them, which will create mercenaries that will defend or clear specific areas of the map in the name of your faction.
This idea came from a player suggestion. We found it quite intriguing.
Indeed. I can't wait to see how we will bring change to the game.
Why, of course, they're the neutral camp barracks.
Yes, indeed. That is a very big change. You see, we realized that so many players love using neutral units. Ants, Mumakils, Eagles. Well, having any of them would be a blessing.
Why, of course, because they're so powerful.
Yes, indeed. And in Season 3, we will have so many more brand new neutral units. Like...
Okay, that's quite enough. We can leave the surprises to the players to experience in Season 3.
Absolutely. Many players love to use neutral unit, partly, but you see, too few players got to experience them. So in Season 3, we decided to provide a new way for players to recruit those neutral units. A neutral camp field barracks will be available for players to build, provided their structure has reached the appropriate development level. After this, all players in the same faction will be able to recruit the corresponding neutral unit if its camp has been constructed.
In previous seasons, most factions chose their development routes based upon which enemies they wanted to face and in what way. With the introduction of the structured development system in Season 3, factions will be able to shift their focus and consider new elements such as the buffs and bonuses provided by structures located in certain regions and choose their strategy accordingly.
Take for example Hobbiton. Developing this structure would raise your storage camp, and then, if the defensive capability of Hobbiton has been researched, players can now build neutral camp unique to Hobbiton.
At this point in time, we should say a word about Dol Guldur, the season goal of Season 3. For the faction that occupies Dol Guldur, the players in that faction's rings will undergo a terrifying and powerful change. Various ring texts, including your territory cap, will double, depending, of course, on the development level of Dol Guldur.
Our hope is that players will plan their structured development depending on regional rivalries. Every expansion route is unique and provides a different experience. Based on the choices you make, you will be able to reach various different endings and write your own legend.
And how exactly do you plan to write your own legend?
Well, fight for the evil faction, of course.
We already have one wizard engaged in such tomfoolery. One is enough.
United! United! United!
Yes, of course, united indeed, yes. The United Factions feature is one of our most hotly requested features from the player base. Adding such a feature, of course, will add great strategic depth to our game, allowing players from different factions to unite as one faction, sharing both season rewards and responsibilities in terms of season goals.
Diplomacy has always been a very important part of the game. You see, some players play the role of diplomat in every server they are in. In some cases, through the use of diplomacy, they even change the tide of battle.
Of course, diplomacy is a double-edged sword. On one end, you have camaraderie and hope. On the other, deceit and trickery. Identifying enemies and allies is an important part of the strategy for every player in our game. Once each server reaches a certain level of server progress, this feature will be unlocked server-wide.
Secondly, the decision of whether or not to forge an alliance will be put to a vote among players. In time, each faction will have fellowship or warband leaders, and a council will be established to initiate proposals between factions. And then, approved proposals will be sent to all players to vote on, after which a decision to create a joint faction or not will be made.
Of course, these alliances can be voided should either side find the cooperation less than agreeable. Be warned, however, that there is a limited number of times that one can change an alliance during a season.
Well, using the joint faction feature, both factions will be able to cross each other's territory and use that territory for expanding even more.
For example, if the enemy is at your gates or has you surrounded, you can call upon your joint faction ally to come to your rescue. This way, they can respond more quickly.
In the season objectives, contributions will be introduced to the rankings. Players with higher rankings will receive a higher seasonal rewards and also prove their worth to their faction. After establishing a joint faction, the season rewards will be settled jointly. Keep in mind though that the spot to receive rewards will remain the same.
In accordance with this, council members must carefully weigh the decision of who to ally with in a united faction. The two strongest factions in a server allying is not necessarily the most wise decision. Our primary concern was offering a way for players to maximize the value of such alliances while at the same time maintaining fairness within the overall game balance.
Well, yes, of course. The original 10 factions will be expanded to 12, introducing the Orcs from Mount Gundabad. The Easterling Varyak faction, their respective units, unique faction units, will also be introduced.
We will also have new unique units, such as Keepers, Vanguards, Seafarers, and Wraiths.
Denizens of Middle-earth will also be extremely pleased to feast their eyes upon Umbar, the city in the south of Gondor. Thank you all for meeting with us today. I hope that you are very pleased with what you heard.
Yes, and if you want to convene with other tacticians and discuss matters related to the game, there's apparently some sort of council. If you're lucky enough, we may see them.
Until next time.
Indeed.